The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched for nearly a mile in every direction. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds formed near the top, and thousands of floating platforms carried delegates from hundreds of different worlds. Light from 3 artificial suns filled the space with a soft golden glow, and the air hummed with translator devices converting countless languages into something each species could understand. On this day, the hall was more crowded than usual. Word had spread across the galaxy that a new species would make their first appearance before the council. A species from a small blue world near the edge of known space. A species called humans. Daniel Carter stood at the entrance and looked up at the massive chamber. He was a man of 53 years with gray hair and calm brown eyes. He wore a simple dark suit, nothing fancy or decorated. Beside him stood Laura Bennett, a woman in her 30s with short black hair and sharp green eyes. She carried a small tablet and was already taking notes on everything she saw. "It's bigger than I expected," Laura said quietly. "Everything out here is bigger than we expected," Daniel replied. He adjusted his tie and stepped forward. "Let's go introduce ourselves." Their platform carried them slowly into the center of the hall. As they passed other delegates, Daniel noticed the stares. Some aliens looked at them with curiosity. Others looked at them with something closer to disgust. A few laughed openly, not even trying to hide their amusement. One creature that looked like a tall insect leaned toward its companion and spoke in a clicking voice. The translator in Daniel's ear converted the words. "Those are the humans? They look like soft children. How did they even survive on their world?" Daniel pretended not to hear. He kept his face calm and pleasant. The platform stopped at a small section near the outer edge of the hall. This was where new species were placed, far from the center where important decisions were made. Daniel and Laura took their seats and waited. The session began with routine matters. Trade agreements between old allies. Border disputes that had lasted for centuries. Daniel listened to all of it, learning how the council worked, who held power, and who was ignored. After several hours, a loud chime rang through the hall. A massive platform rose in the center, carrying a creature that stood nearly 10 feet tall. It had blue-gray skin, 4 arms, and a face with no visible mouth. Its eyes glowed with soft white light, and when it spoke, the words seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I am High Speaker Zorax of the Velthary Dominion," the creature announced. "Today, we address the matter of the new species requesting observer status. The humans." Daniel stood up. Every eye in the hall turned toward him. "We thank the council for allowing us to attend," Daniel said. His voice was calm and steady. "We come in peace and hope to learn from the great civilizations gathered here." Silence followed his words. Then someone laughed. It started as a single sound from somewhere in the upper platforms, but it spread quickly. Soon, hundreds of delegates were laughing openly at the human ambassador. High Speaker Zorax raised one of his 4 hands, and the laughter slowly died down. "Tell me, human," he said, and there was amusement in his voice. "What does your species offer the galaxy? What technology do you bring? What military strength? What resources?" Daniel thought for a moment before answering. "We are new to space travel. We have much to learn and little to offer at this time. But we are eager to grow and to build friendships with other worlds." More laughter filled the hall. A creature with scales and sharp teeth stood up on a nearby platform. "Friendships?" it repeated. "The Krethian Empire does not need friends. We need allies with power. You have no warships, no weapons worth mentioning. Your species lives only 70 or 80 years. What could you possibly contribute in such a short time?" "We contribute what we can," Daniel said simply. The Krethian made a sound of disgust and sat back down. Laura leaned close to Daniel. "These people are awful," she whispered. They're treating us like a joke. Let them, Daniel whispered back. We're watching and learning. That's why we're here. The session continued, and the insults did not stop. One delegate called humans primitive mammals barely out of their caves. Another wondered aloud if humans were intelligent enough to understand the proceedings. A third suggested that humanity's homeworld should be quarantined to prevent their backwardness from spreading. Through all of it, Daniel sat quietly and listened. He nodded politely at every insult. He smiled at every joke made at humanity's expense. And he watched everything with careful attention. When the session finally ended, High Speaker Zorax made an announcement. The Council has voted on the matter of human membership. By a count of 412 to 3, humanity is denied a permanent seat on the Galactic Council. They may continue as observers if they wish, though we cannot imagine why they would bother. The hall filled with laughter once again. Daniel stood and bowed respectfully. We thank the Council for their consideration. We will remain as observers and continue to learn. As their platform carried them back toward the exit, Lavra shook her head. 412 to 3. Only 3 species voted for us. That's humiliating. No, Daniel said. That's information. Now we know exactly where we stand. And where is that? Daniel looked back at the Great Hall, at the thousands of aliens who had mocked and dismissed his entire species. At the bottom, he said, which means there's only one direction we can go. Lavra studied his face. There was no anger there, no shame. Just calm patience and something else. Something that looked almost like a plan. You expected this, she said. You knew they would reject us. I knew it was possible. So why did we come? Daniel smiled slightly as their platform reached the exit. To see who laughs at those beneath them, and to find the ones who don't. Outside the Great Hall, the neutral world of Varanthos spread before them. A city of glass and light, built to host the galaxy's most powerful beings. Daniel Carter looked up at the unfamiliar stars and thought about all the species he had just met. They would remember this day, he knew. They would remember how they laughed at humanity. And someday, when they needed help, they would wonder why they had been so cruel. But that day was not today. Today was for watching and learning, and Daniel Carter was a very patient man. The days that followed were long and difficult. Daniel and Laura attended every council session, but they were never invited to speak. When important meetings happened behind closed doors, the humans were not allowed inside. When trade agreements were discussed, no one asked for humanity's opinion. They were ghosts in the Great Hall. Present but invisible Laura found it harder to accept than Daniel did. She paced their small quarters each night, her tablet filled with notes about every insult they had received. The Krethian ambassador called us walking meat today, she said, right to my face. And the Velthari delegates keep asking if we need help finding food, like we're lost animals. Write it all down, Daniel said. He sat by the window, looking out at the alien city. Every name, every insult, every detail. Why? What good does it do? Information is never wasted. On the 5th day, something changed. The Krethian war commander came to visit them personally. His name was Varth, and he stood 8 feet tall with armor built into his scaled skin. His eyes were red and cold, and his teeth were sharp enough to cut through metal. He entered their quarters without asking permission. 2 guards followed him, carrying weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Human, Varth said, looking down at Daniel. I am told you are the leader of your little group. Daniel stood slowly. I am the ambassador. How can I help you, Commander? Varth laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. Help me? You cannot help anyone. I came to see the creatures everyone is talking about. The soft ones. The weak ones. The ones who will not last 100 years in this galaxy. We appreciate your interest in humanity, Daniel said calmly. Interest? Vorath stepped closer. He was so large that Daniel had to look straight up to meet his eyes. I have conquered 12 species. 12 worlds kneel before the Krethian Empire. Their people serve us. Their resources belong to us. That is power. That is strength. What do you have? Daniel considered the question. We have curiosity. We want to learn about other species. Vorath stared at him for a long moment, then burst into laughter. Curiosity? The human thinks curiosity will protect him. He turned to his guards. Did you hear that? They will learn their way to safety. The guards laughed with their commander. Tell me, human, Vorath said, leaning close. His breath was hot and smelled like copper. When a stronger species comes to take your world, what will you do? Will you ask them questions? Will you study their culture while they burn your cities? I hope it never comes to that, Daniel said. Hope. Vorath shook his head. Another useless word. The galaxy does not care about hope. Only power matters. Only strength. He straightened up and walked toward the door. Your species will be forgotten within a generation. Enjoy your time here while it lasts. After the Krethians left, Lavra finally spoke. I wanted to punch him. Right in his ugly face. I know. How do you stay so calm? Daniel sat back down by the window. Because anger is what they expect. They want us to react, to give them a reason to dismiss us. If we stay calm, we learn more. And we need to learn everything we can. That evening, something unexpected happened. A knock came at their door, soft and hesitant. Daniel opened it to find a young Velthury standing outside. She was smaller than High Speaker Zorax, with pale blue skin and eyes that glowed with soft silver light. May I enter? She asked. I am Sereth. I work in the Council archives. Daniel stepped aside. Please, come in. Sereth looked around the small quarters with obvious curiosity. I have never spoken with a human before. I wanted to see if the things people say about you are true. What things? Lavra asked. That you are primitive. That you lack intelligence. That you are too emotional to be trusted. Sereth tilted her head. You do not seem primitive to me. Daniel smiled slightly. We try our best. Would you like to sit down? They talked for hours. Sereth asked questions about Earth, about human history, about their journey to the stars. Daniel answered honestly, sharing stories about his homeworld without revealing anything sensitive. In return, Sereth told them about the Velthury and the Council. She explained the old alliances and the older grudges. She described which species could be trusted and which ones could not. The Krethians are bullies, she said. They have power, but they are not clever. They win through force, never through wisdom. And the Velthury? Lavra asked. Sereth hesitated. My people believe we are the most advanced species in the galaxy. We have great mental abilities. We can move objects with our thoughts, communicate without words, see things others cannot see. She paused. But we are also proud. Too proud, perhaps. We do not listen to those we consider beneath us. That seems common here, Daniel said. It is. The Council has existed for thousands of years. In that time, many species have come and gone. Some were conquered. Some were forgotten. Some simply faded away. Sereth looked at Daniel with her silver eyes. The Council believes humanity will fade away too. And what do you believe? Sereth was quiet for a long moment. I believe there is something different about you. I cannot explain it. When Commander Vorath threatens you, you do not react with fear or anger. When the Council mocks you, you simply watch and listen. Most species would fight back or run away. You do neither. Daniel nodded slowly. We are good at waiting. Waiting for what? Daniel did not answer. He just smiled and changed the subject. When Sareth finally left, Lovra turned to Daniel with wide eyes. She's the first alien who's been kind to us. Why? Because she's curious. Like us. Can we trust her? Daniel thought about it. Not yet. But maybe someday? We need friends out here, Laura. Real friends. And friendship takes time. The next morning, an announcement echoed through the council halls. There would be a special event in 3 days. A demonstration of power where each species could display their military strength. The message ended with a joke. Perhaps the humans would like to participate. We could all use the entertainment. Lavra looked at Daniel. Please tell me you're not going to agree to that. Daniel smiled. I am absolutely going to agree to that. They'll humiliate us, maybe. Or maybe they'll learn something. He stood and straightened his tie. Let's go sign up. The demonstration arena floated in space high above Varanthos. It was a massive structure made of crystal and metal, designed to give every delegate a perfect view of the displays below. Thousands of aliens filled the observation platforms, eager to see which species would prove the strongest. Daniel and Laura sat in the human section, which was just 2 small seats at the very edge of the arena. No one sat near them. No one wanted to be associated with the galaxy's newest joke. I still think this is a mistake, Lavra said quietly. Noted, Daniel replied. He watched as the first species prepared their demonstration. The Krethian Empire went first. A fleet of massive warships emerged from hyperspace, filling the arena with their shadow. Each ship was covered in weapons that glowed with purple energy. Fighters poured from their hangars like angry insects, performing complex battle formations that showed years of training. Commander Varath stood on the main observation platform, his chest swelling with pride. The Krethian Empire fields over 10,000 warships, he announced, each one capable of destroying a planet. We have never lost a war. We never will. The crowd cheered. Even species who hated the Krethians had to admit their military was impressive. Next came the Velthari. They did not bring ships. Instead, a group of their most powerful minds floated into the center of the arena. They raised their hands together, and the very fabric of space began to bend. Asteroids from a nearby belt were pulled toward them, then crushed into dust with nothing but thought. One of the Velthari created a shield of pure mental energy that blocked weapons fire from a drone ship. Another reached out and stopped the drone's engines with her mind alone. High Speaker Zorax spoke from his platform. The Velthari Dominion needs no ships. We are the weapons. Our minds can break fleets, shatter worlds, and see into the thoughts of our enemies. No secret is hidden from us. More cheers filled the arena. The Velthari had been one of the founding species of the Council, and their powers were legendary. Other species followed. The Tauran showed off biological weapons that could consume metal and reproduce endlessly. The Kelax demonstrated shields that could absorb any energy attack and redirect it back at the attacker. The Voss, a species made entirely of living crystal, simply stood in space and let a Krethian warship fire everything it had at them. The weapons did nothing. The Voss did not even move. Each display was more impressive than the last. Each species tried to prove they were the strongest, the most dangerous, the most worthy of respect. Then it was humanity's turn. The arena fell silent as Daniel Carter walked to the central platform. He wore the same simple dark suit he always wore. He carried no weapons. Behind him, no fleet appeared. No soldiers marched. No technology was displayed. He simply stood there. Well? Commander Vorath called out, his voice filled with mockery. Where is your great power, human? Where are your weapons? Daniel looked up at the thousands of faces watching him. He could see their amusement, their contempt, their certainty that he had nothing to offer. "We have nothing to show today," Daniel said calmly. The arena erupted in laughter. It was the loudest sound Daniel had ever heard. Thousands of aliens from hundreds of worlds, all laughing at humanity at the same time. Nothing. High Speaker Zorak said, and even he seemed amused. "You came to a demonstration of power with nothing to demonstrate." "That is correct. Then why did you come at all?" Daniel smiled slightly. "To watch. To learn. To see what the galaxy considers strength." More laughter. Someone threw something at him, a piece of fruit from some alien world. It splattered against the platform near his feet. "The humans are cowards," someone shouted. "They should have stayed on their primitive world. They will be conquered within a decade." Daniel stood through all of it. He did not flinch, did not react, did not respond. He simply waited until the laughter died down, then bowed politely and returned to his seat. Lavra was pale with embarrassment. "That was humiliating. It was perfect," Daniel said quietly. "Perfect? They're laughing at us." "Yes, and while they laugh, they stop watching. They stop worrying. They forget that we're here." Daniel's eyes were fixed on something in the distance. "That's exactly what we need." That evening, Sareth came to visit again. She looked troubled. "I'm sorry for what happened today," she said. "The council can be cruel." "We knew what we were walking into," Daniel said. Sareth sat down slowly. "May I ask you something honestly?" "Of course." "Your species has traveled faster than light. You found your way to the council. You must have technology of some kind. Why did you show nothing today?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "Because the council already decided what we are. They think we're weak, primitive, harmless. Nothing we showed today would have changed their minds. So instead of fighting their expectations, we let them believe what they want to believe. That seems like a strange strategy. Maybe. But humanity learned a long time ago that being underestimated can be useful." Before Sareth could respond, every light in the building turned red. A loud alarm began to wail, and automated voices spoke in a dozen languages at once. "Emergency alert. All delegates report to the main hall immediately." This is not a drill. They rushed to the great hall and found chaos. Delegates were shouting at each other. Military commanders were calling for their ships. High Speaker Zorak stood at the central platform, and for the first time since Daniel had met him, the Velthari looked afraid. "We have received word from the outer sectors," Zorak announced, his voice shaking. "A fleet of unknown origin has entered Council space. Initial scans indicate over 5,000 vessels, all heavily armed." A Krethian general pushed forward. "What species? Who dares attack the council?" Zorak's face was grim. The markings on their ships match records from ancient times. Records we hoped were only myths. He paused, and his voice dropped to nearly a whisper. "They are the Devourers. They have returned." Silence filled the hall. Even Commander Vurath looked pale. "The Devourers destroyed 1,000 worlds before they disappeared," someone said. "They cannot be stopped. They cannot be reasoned with. They consume everything." Panic began to spread. Species that had been mocking each other minutes ago were now screaming at each other, blaming each other, demanding answers that no one had. Daniel stood at the edge of the chaos, watching everything. Lavra moved close to him. "What do we do?" she asked. Daniel's eyes were calm, but there was something hard in them now. Something that had been waiting for this moment. "We wait," he said. "Just a little longer." The next 3 days were the worst the Galactic Council had ever seen. Reports came in from across the galaxy, each one more terrible than the last. The Devourers were not just attacking, they were consuming. Entire worlds went silent. Fleets vanished without sending a single message. The darkness spread like a disease, moving closer to the heart of Council space with every passing hour. Commander Vorath led the Krethian response. He gathered the largest fleet in the Empire's history, over 2,000 warships carrying millions of soldiers. He stood before the Council and promised victory. "The Krethians do not run from battle," he declared. "We will meet these devourers and show them what true warriors can do." His fleet departed to the sound of cheers. For a few hours, the Council felt hope. The Krethians were brutal, but they were also powerful. Surely they could slow the enemy down. 8 hours later, the first distress signal arrived. Then another. Then silence. Vorath's entire fleet was gone. 2,000 ships. Millions of lives. Erased in less than a day, the Council fell apart. Old allies turned on each other. Species that had been friends for centuries now accused each other of weakness, of cowardice, of causing this disaster somehow. The Velthari tried to use their mental powers to probe the Devourers, but something blocked them. For the first time in their history, the Velthari could not see their enemies' thoughts. They were as blind as everyone else. "We must flee," someone shouted. "Abandon the Council and scatter across the galaxy." "Running will not save us," another replied. "They will hunt us down one by one. Then what do we do? What can anyone do?" High Speaker Zorax stood at the center of the chaos. His confidence was gone. His pride was shattered. He looked around at the hundreds of species that once followed his leadership, and he saw only fear. "Is there no one who can help us?" he asked. His voice was barely a whisper, but the translators carried it to every corner of the hall. "Is there no one with a plan?" Silence answered him. Then footsteps echoed through the hall. Slow, calm footsteps that made no hurry despite the panic around them. Daniel Carter walked to the center of the chamber. Everyone turned to look at him. The human ambassador, the representative of the species they had mocked and dismissed and laughed at for weeks. What could he possibly have to say? "Zorax," Daniel said. His voice was quiet but steady. "You asked if anyone can help." "I can." Vorath's second in command, a Krethian general who had survived by staying behind, stepped forward with rage in his eyes. "You? The species that showed nothing at the demonstration? The soft mammals who cannot even fight?" "Yes, us. What could you possibly do that the Krethian Empire could not?" Daniel looked at the general with calm eyes. "Ask for help." Confused murmurs spread through the hall. Daniel reached up and touched a small device on his wrist. It looked like a simple bracelet, nothing fancy or impressive. "I am going to make a call now," he said. "When I do, the people on the other end will answer. They will come here. They will fight the Devourers with us. And if we work together, we might survive this." Zorax stared at him. "What people? Humanity has no fleet, no allies, no power. You said so yourself." Daniel smiled slightly. "I said we had nothing to show at the demonstration. I did not say we had nothing at all." He raised one finger and pressed a single button on his wrist device. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the hall's communication systems came alive with incoming signals. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. Then thousands. "What is this?" Zorax demanded. Daniel lowered his hand. "When humanity first traveled to the stars, we found many things the Council had forgotten. Colonies that were abandoned. Species that were cast out. Worlds that the Council decided were not worth saving." He paused. "We did not forget them. We helped them. We shared what we had. We became their friends." A screen activated in the center of the hall, showing a star map. Red dots appeared across the galaxy, each one representing a ship responding to Daniel's signal. "There are 47 species in the coalition we built," Daniel continued. "None of them are members of this council. Most of you have never heard of them, but they are out there. They have been building ships, training soldiers, preparing for the day when they might need to fight. The red dots began to move toward Varanthos. They are coming here now. All of them. Because we asked. Zorax stared at the screen. His mind could not process what he was seeing. This is impossible. We would have detected this alliance. We would have known. You were not looking, Daniel said simply. You never look at the species you consider beneath you. That was your mistake. The Crethian general shook his head. Even if this is true, these are weak species. Forgotten species. What can they do against the Devourers? Daniel turned to face him. Alone, they can do nothing. Just like the Crethians alone could do nothing. Just like the Velthari alone can do nothing. He looked around the hall at every delegate watching him. But together we have a chance. That is what humanity offers. Not weapons or powers. Connection. Cooperation. The understanding that no single species can face every threat. But together, we are stronger than any enemy. Larva stepped up beside him. The Devourers have never faced a united galaxy. They beat the Crethians because they expected the same thing they always find, a divided council too proud to work with others. We can show them something different. Zorax was silent for a long moment. Then he looked at Daniel with new eyes. Why? The High Speaker asked. We mocked you. We insulted you. We denied you a seat at this council. Why would you help us now? Daniel's answer was simple. Because helping is what we do. It is who we are. The first ships of the coalition began to arrive, emerging from hyperspace around Varanthos. They were not the massive warships of the Crethians or the elegant vessels of the Velthari. They were simple, practical ships crewed by species the Council had forgotten long ago. But there were thousands of them. And they had all come because one human lifted one finger and asked. Zorax straightened up. For the first time in days, there was something other than fear in his eyes. Tell us what you need, he said. The Velthari Dominion will follow your lead. Daniel nodded. Then let's get to work. We have a galaxy to save. The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched out like a hollow moon. Thousands of seats rose in circles around a central platform, filled with delegates from 100 different species. Some had scales that shimmered under the artificial lights. Others had tentacles or wings or bodies made of living crystal. They spoke in dozens of languages, all translated instantly by the chamber's systems. Ambassador Daniel Carter stood alone at the central platform. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 20 years serving Earth in this place, and in all that time, nothing had changed. The galaxy still looked at humanity the way a grown person might look at a child playing with toys. The Jarth Imperium has taken 17 systems in the past year, Daniel said. His voice carried through the chamber, translated into every language at once. They are moving toward the inner territories. Our projections show they will reach the Sol system within 8 months. A sound like laughter rippled through the chamber. It came from the upper seats where the Velani Dominion sat. Their leader, High Counselor Vothax, rose to his full height. He was nearly 3 meters tall, with blue skin and 4 arms. His people had ruled 1,000 worlds for 10,000 years. The representative from Earth speaks of projections, Vothax said. Perhaps he does not understand the situation. The Jarth are conquering developed worlds. Worlds with value. Why would they waste resources on a Category 7 primitive planet? More laughter. Daniel felt his face grow hot, but he kept his expression calm. Earth has value, he said. We have 7 billion people. We have resources. You have chemical rockets and nuclear weapons, Vothax interrupted. Your species discovered faster than light travel only 80 years ago. You still use combustion engines and projectile weapons. The Jorath have energy shields that can stop a meteor impact. Your bullets would bounce off their ships like rain. Daniel took a slow breath. That is why I am here. Earth requests access to advanced defensive technology. We are willing to pay any reasonable price. We only ask for the chance to defend ourselves. The chamber grew quiet. Vithax looked around at the other delegates, and his thin lips curved into something like a smile. The Council appreciates Earth's concern, he said. But our laws are clear. Category 7 worlds do not receive advanced technology. It would be dangerous. Your species is too young, too unstable. You might use such weapons against each other. We are asking for defensive systems only, Daniel said. Shield generators. Early warning networks. Anything that might. The request is denied. The words fell like stones. Daniel looked around the chamber, searching for any sign of support. Most delegates avoided his eyes. A few looked at him with something like pity. In the far corner, he noticed Delegate Sirith of the Kreth Assembly watching him with an expression he could not read. The Kreth were an old species, quiet and thoughtful. They rarely spoke in council sessions. "High Counselor," Daniel said, keeping his voice steady. "If Earth falls to the Jorath, they will use our system as a staging point for deeper expansion. This is not just about humanity. This is about the entire region." Vithax waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. "The Jorath are not stupid. They will see that Earth has nothing worth taking. They will pass you by, just as they pass by the other primitive worlds in the Outer Rim. You are simply not important enough to conquer." The words hung in the air. Daniel felt them like a physical blow. Not important enough. After everything humanity had achieved, after all the struggles and dreams and sacrifices, that was how the galaxy saw them. A small backward species playing with outdated toys while the real powers decided the fate of worlds. "I call for a vote," Vithax said. "All in favor of denying Earth's request for technology sharing?" Lights flickered across the chamber as delegates registered their votes. Green for yes, red for no. Daniel watched as the display filled with green lights. One by one, every species in the council voted against Earth, even the Kreth. Though Sirith's light was the last to turn green, and she looked away as it did. "The vote is unanimous," Vithax announced. "Earth's request is denied. This session is concluded." Daniel stood alone on the platform as the delegates began to file out. Some walked past him without a glance. Others paused just long enough to offer empty words of sympathy. One of the Velaniades actually patted him on the shoulder, the way someone might comfort a child who had lost a game. He was gathering his materials when a soft voice spoke behind him. "Ambassador Carter." He turned to find Delegate Sirith standing there. She was small by galactic standards, barely taller than a human, with silver skin and large dark eyes. Her people were among the oldest in the council, though they had lost most of their influence centuries ago. "Delegate Sirith," Daniel said, "thank you for your vote of confidence." She had the grace to look ashamed. "I am sorry. The council has rules, and I must follow them. But I want you to know that not everyone agrees with Vithax. It doesn't matter what anyone agrees with. The vote was unanimous." Sirith glanced around to make sure they were alone. "The Jorath are more dangerous than the council admits. They have already destroyed 3 species that refuse to surrender. The council believes they can be negotiated with contained. I am not so sure." Daniel studied her face. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because your species reminds me of my own, long ago. We were also called primitive once. We were also dismissed." She paused. "We survived because we did not wait for permission to defend ourselves." Before Daniel could respond, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd of departing delegates. Daniel Carter returned to Earth the next day. He stood before the United Earth Council and delivered his report. The room was silent as he spoke. No one interrupted. No one asked questions. When he finished, the silence stretched out like a wound. "So we're alone," Chancellor Patricia Hayes said finally. She was a small woman with steel in her voice. "The galaxy won't help us." "No," Daniel admitted. "They won't." The Chancellor nodded slowly. She looked around the room at the generals and scientists and leaders gathered there. Then she straightened her shoulders and spoke the words that would change everything. "Then we help ourselves. Begin full mobilization. Every ship, every weapon, every resource we have. If the Joreth want Earth, they'll have to pay for it." 3 days later, the detection stations on the edge of the solar system picked up something moving through the darkness. A fleet of ships, alien and angular, dropping out of faster-than-light, travel near the orbit of Neptune. The Joreth had arrived early, and Earth stood alone.